for word prayer. Lord, just coming right now, giving you great thanks, Lord. Just thank you for you being the Lord, the living God, the one who has loved us, Lord, who is eternal. And Lord, I just pray that there's just blessings be on all of your people. And Lord, just that we would all just see you, grow in you, and have a heart for you like never before. In your son's name, first another. Amen. Amen. So guys, in 1 Samuel chapter 21, and if you'll forgive me, I'm not even going to go read it because if I do, we'll lose time there. So this is the same story as what we talked about last time, 2 weeks ago, right? Yeah, because the graduation was last week. So yeah, 2 weeks ago. 2 weeks ago Tuesday. This is the story where David has fled, and he ends up going into, I believe it was Gath, and before the king, and pretends that he's insane in order to get away. So last week's psalm was that of him getting caught and him being taken to that point before basically he does act like he's all crazy and then they let him go. This is written after the fact of him acting like he's crazy and slobbering all over himself and scratching at the doors until finally the king said, well, if this is that David, that he's crazy anyways, let him go. So this is kind of the aftermath, all right, which is Psalms 34. Good? Good enough description? Yes? Because of those of you who were not here, maybe kind of missed out there on the happenings there with David, but what we're doing here is we're going back into the Psalms that he wrote about the happenings. How much do you guys know about Psalms in general? Not much? So do you know what Psalms are? Okay. Too many different things being said for me to be able to say yes. Songs, what we call S-O-N-G-S, songs. Yes? So why are songs written? Too many answers for me to be able to say yes. The reason why songs are written is because whoever writes them desires for what to take place with them. For them to be heard, which means that somebody has to do what with them? Thank you, Paul. Sing with them. Songs are written because they are meant to be sung. All of you guys' great, deep theological thoughts and all of that is beautiful, by the way. But the simplicity of it. Guys, the Psalms were written to be sung. All right? They were not written to be hidden. They were not written to be something that was quiet or hush-hush. When a song is sung, how many songs have you ever heard that were sung to not be heard? And when they are sung, who do you want to hear them? Okay, anyone who's around to be able to hear it, yes? And if it's a good song, what's going to happen to the person that hears it? You know, all of a sudden stick on them, right? Like in their head, heart, however you want, whatever you want to call it. And then what happens to that person? Right? So all of a sudden that person will start like singing those words. And then they go around somebody who wasn't around the person singing it, but they can't help it. They start singing that too. And then what happens to the other person? Then it gets passed on to them. Yes? So it was a way, guys, of an expression of emotion, of a reality. Sometimes, guys, if you read through the Psalms, some of the Psalms are very sad and dark and just dire. Some of them are, country music ain't got nothing on the tear and beer songs that can be found there in Psalms. There cannot be songs that could have ever been written by rock and roll that can have more pizzazz and more just fun, get you rocking, jumping all over the place than what you can find in the book of Psalms. There's blues in the Psalms, as there's all the different types of music based on the emotion that it was created from. Okay? It can be found within the book of Psalms. The book of Psalms was written over 1,000 years. Do you know who wrote the first Psalm? I think I'm saying this right. What'd you say, Bert? It was Moses. Moses. Guys, there was other ones. Deborah. Hannah.
Deborah? What? Sing it, Deborah.
Korah. Ezra. Guys, there was many, many different ones. There were certain ones that were tasked with the task of taking poetry that was given. There were some that were tasked with poetry that was given to them and to take it and turn it into a song. So that would mean that they would have to edit and maybe take certain things away, maybe move certain pieces from one part to another, so that way it fit as a song. Now, one thing that's very, very different from the Psalms, as far as from their days to the like songs that we sing today, in order for it to, well, it's supposed to be a song nowadays, it's supposed to actually rhyme, right? It's supposed to. I'm just telling you, it is. All right, it should. That's what it's supposed to be, right? Now, if you look, yes, it is. I'm telling you, yes, it is. Right? The whole idea of songs today, like that's their idea, is that it's supposed to rhyme. It's supposed to go together. It's supposed to flow like that. It's supposed to, like, now with their idea of songs, writing, it was not, it had nothing to do with necessarily a rhythmic in that of it rhyming in that kind of rhythmic way. The rhythm within it was based off of a statement of truth backed by a statement of truth. Okay? So, doesn't mean that some of the Psalms did rhyme. If you go into like the Hebrew that they were written and things like that, according to that, it would have rhymed. Okay? But that was not a thing that needed to be in order for it to be a good song. What it needed to be in order to be good by them was it had to be of truth. And then it had to be backed by truth in order for it to be good. Okay? In order for it to be truth, then what has to be there? God has to be there. Yeah? So in order for it to be a song, who had to be in there? God. So even if it was blues, guys, and some of you guys that were in my Sunday school classes this last year, we walked through a bunch of different Psalms, and we seen some of them in particular where like a gentleman was just talking about how he stayed awake all night long and just twisted and he fought around, he just never could find any peace and so forth and so on. And all of a sudden he gets down to the very, very end, he says, and then I remember the works of the Lord. And I set my mind on them. And then I started to testify of Moses and how God just led them right across the Red Sea and devoured the enemies. And all of a sudden his complete attitude changes. Well, what that would be like to us today would be kind of like a country song or maybe even like certain types of blues in which it starts off as just being really kind of down and sad, but then it builds you up to something, but hey, listen, you know what, but there's some brighter days ahead type of thing, right? And so you can still see a lot of the influence. What I thought was really neat by getting into this, guys, was the influence. There's nothing that we have today that wasn't done by God a long time ago. Yeah? Done it in a different way, very, very much so, in the sense of just kind of the times and the changes of cultures. Yet at the same time, guys, the reality of how many things are similar. The other thing is, guys, the reason why the Psalms were written was to be able to pass on that experience of that moment. Okay? For the joy that might have been felt in that moment, for that joy to be able to be passed on. The hope was that if it was a good song, is that it would stick in the minds and the hearts of those who had heard it originally, and that they would continue to sing it along their way. So wherever it was that they were off to after coming into the city of David and into Jerusalem. All right? Now David gets noted for most of the Psalms, and he was one of the biggest writer of the Psalms. All right? But nonetheless, there was many, many different individuals that composed and that are in here. Okay, including even his son was also another one of the greatest psalmists. All right, and he also obviously wrote Proverbs. But I just thought I'd share that with you guys, and just kind of the whole idea of praise and worship in song. And the idea is just for it to stick in our hearts, in our minds, and that would be what would come up in us, and then be able to spread even onto others. So the point of the Psalms was for the individuals and those who were of faith to enjoy, but it was also to bring that message to others. Yeah? Gotta be God's purpose always. Yeah? For us in the moment to be able to rejoice in the Lord, and for us to be able to bring up rejoicing to others. Thought that was beautiful. There's a bunch of other little tidbits I could share with you guys about it, but yeah, I thought that was kind of interesting, wanted to bring it to you. So there you go. The happiness of those who trust in God, Psalms 34. The happiness of those who trust in God. It was a psalm of David when he pretended madness before Abimelech, who drove him away, and he departed. So he was arrested, brought to him, and the king threw him out. I will bless the Lord at all times. His praise shall continually be in my mouth. My soul shall make its boast in the Lord. The humble shall hear of it and be glad. O magnify the Lord with me, and let us exalt his name together. I sought the Lord, and he heard me, and delivered me from all my fears. They looked to him and were radiant, and their faces were not ashamed. This poor man cried out, and the Lord heard him, and saved him out of all of his troubles. The angel of the Lord encamps all around those who fear him, and delivers them. Oh, taste and see that the Lord is good. Blessed is the man who trusts in him. Oh, fear the Lord, you his saints. There is no want to those who fear him. The young lions lack and suffer hunger, but those who seek the Lord shall not lack any good thing. Come, you children, listen to me, and I will teach you the fear of the Lord. Who is the man who desires life and loves many days, that he may see good? Keep your tongue from evil and your lips from speaking deceit. Depart from evil and do good. Seek peace and pursue it. The eyes of the Lord are on the righteous, and his ears are open to their cry. The face of the Lord is against those who do evil, to cut off the remembrance of them from the earth. The righteous cry out, and the Lord hears, and delivers them out of all of their troubles. The Lord is near to those who have a broken heart, and saves such as have a crushed spirit. Many are the afflictions of the righteous, but the Lord delivers him out of all of them. He guards all his bones, not one of them is broken. Evil shall slay the wicked, and those who hate the righteous shall be condemned. The Lord redeems the soul of his servants, and none of them who trust in him shall be condemned. That's big. It is huge. I wish this one would have said what this one was set to, even though I don't know what any of those settings are. Like, you read some of the songs, it says this was set to such and such music. I always wonder what that music specifically would have sounded like at that day and time. But, guys, the heart of David here, again, to understand kind of the situation that David was in, running from those that really he was for and loved and supported, who wanted to destroy him and kill him, and being caught by those who were his enemies. The Philistines were actually the ones who caught him in this situation and brought him before this king that he had been pretending to be crazy before and got away from. And as he's going away, it's funny, like how many of us, so guys, okay, so the book of Samuel records what took place, right? He records the history of it. But what did David want everybody to know from his experience? You notice, like, he doesn't go into the details of, like, all the different things that took place. You notice that? Like, he doesn't, like, but what he does talk about, though, is who God is and what God is about. He talks about what man and where man is at in man's need and how God addresses it. Yeah? So there's a lot of different things within this guy that I just think is really, really amazing. He says, I will bless the Lord at all times. Literally, there, that word, what it meant was giving of thanks. So I will always give thanks to the Lord at all times. Echoed by maybe Paul. I'm going to say it was Paul. Yeah, the Apostle Paul. I will praise the Lord. I will be thankful to the Lord at all times. What's David going through? Huh? Yeah, he was just arrested and taken for his killing, right? I mean, to be killed. Yeah, I mean, you go on and on and on, and yet at the same time, when he's, hey, I'm going to give thanks to God all the time. Yeah? And if you say all thanks, then what does that mean? Just in case, just make sure that we understand. When you say with all thanks, what does that mean? Okay, so it means that you're giving thanks for all things, right? So the wording of that, giving all thanks, that literally means for all things. That I'm giving God thanks for all things. And then he goes on to say, at all times. So during the good times, during the bad times. Yeah? While I'm being led to my slaughter, or after slaughtering all over myself, they let me go, then I'm running away from it. Yeah? Under persecution, not, but at all times I'm going to give him praise. Now, again, guys, when we were talking about that, I brought that up earlier, but kind of the poetic side to this is that the first statement and the second one backs it up. Okay? So real quick, kind of looking at that in that mindset, I'm going to be thankful to the Lord for all things at all times. And then his next statement is, his praise shall continually be in my mouth. So that's the poetic, rhythmic side to that. Does that make sense? And so literally, he's coming back with a second truth to back up the first truth. His praise, his worship, then it's going to always be right there in my mouth. He says, my soul shall make its boast in the Lord. What does that mean? Huh? Bragging about God. Literally, I want to walk around with my head up high. Man, look at what God did for me. Some people turn around and say, oh, look at the pride that individual has. Right? And what does God say about man's pride? He hates a proud look. Just for you to even look like you're proud about yourself. Hello? And then yet here he says, and guys, from the deepest part of his person, from his own soul, that he's going to make his boast, but it's always going to be in the Lord. How many people would have walked away and been like, yeah, man, I really outdid them. I pretended, and man, I got away with it. That's what the nature of man would have been wanting to do with that situation. Instead, for David, he's like, no, man, God got me out of it, man. My God heard me. My God. Yeah. Does that make sense? It's funny because just the twisted way of man, I guess, how close and yet how twisted. See, there should be pride or boasting, whatever word you want to use, but where ours should always be is in our God. You know what I mean? And then with that, then you can walk around with your head up high. Yeah, chest popped out. Man, yeah, walk with some swag, Yeah? But it's because of our Lord. It's who He is. Now, how He comes back to this, guys, so following with the second truth. My soul shall make its boast in the Lord. The humble shall hear it and be glad. So what's funny with this one is he uses two words that are complete opposites of each other. To boast and humble. Yeah? Because the boasting is in the Lord, the only ones who could rejoice in that would be those who have been made humble under the mighty hand of God. And their hearts then would also rejoice. He says, oh, magnify the Lord with me. What is it to magnify something? To make it larger. And when you magnify something, how much larger does it make it? Have you ever taken a magnifying glass and put it up against something? Like, ridiculous, right? Out of reality. Bigger. Yes? If you ever take an ant, you put it down, and then you put a magnifying glass, and the ant fills up the whole magnifying glass, that's not even, but God should be lifted up in that way. Yeah? And by the way, what's funny to me about this statement is can you make a bigger deal out of God than what God actually is? No, you really can't. But you can have fun trying. Yeah? And what he's saying is, man, we should be trying, man. We should make a big deal out of every single thing. Every little thing that our Lord does, even if it seems like it's just as small as an ant, we should make a big deal out of it. Yeah? And guys, honestly, we should. And the Lord blesses us all the time with all kinds of different things. Some of them small, some of them big. And you know what we should be doing is bragging on our God all the time, making a big deal out of it. You know, I was talking with a gentleman today, and keep him in prayer greatly, Edgar, our brother here. And one of the things we kind of came back to was actually talking about Lonesome Dove. And life is still life, even in San Francisco. You know, a cup of coffee is going to be a cup of coffee. Enjoy the cup of coffee. You know, at the end of the day, enjoy it, because life is still going to be what it is. Yeah, and sometimes we think, oh, well, if it's over here, if it's over there, then it's going to be better. No, it just is. Yeah? But you know what always can be made a big deal out of? God. Yeah? And guys, He is our life, and He is our everything. Now here, He comes back with the second truth, and the second truth is this. First, He says, oh, magnify the Lord with me. So who is He talking to? He comes back and says, and let us exalt His name together. Who is He talking to? Okay. By definition, guys, here, it was the congregation. So what's the congregation? Okay, you can't say the church, and the reason why I can't say that is because of the concept that's out there with the church. So I can't say the church. But the congregation.
Assembled.
Okay, it means assembled. Okay? And so the reason why I can't use that is because some people, and I think beautifully, I had a conversation with somebody. I think it was really, really beautiful, guys. I'm just really, really praying for that individual as well. I do think that the Lord's just maybe just really working some things, and so I'm just really hopeful. But that individual came back and said, oh, my brother. And there were some of us from the body, the assembled body, that ran up to them and said, oh, my sister, because they hadn't been here for years. And really what they've been living was not the Lord. And they ran up to him and said, sister, come to church, which is great. I mean, in the sense that we want them to come to church. But the misconception that placed in their mind is that they were a sister when they're not a sister. What makes a sister a sister? You know, the assembly. So with this individual, they came back to me and said, brother. And I said, whoa, wait, why are you even saying that? And they were like, well, because I came here, and since I was a kid, and I got baptized here, blah, 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 blah. And it was like, no, but you went away. You're the one who left. If you've left, then you're not any longer. When the son left, he left. The father had to restore him. Now, that was only on the basis of him coming back and saying, man, and you don't notice the son's heart when he did return? He didn't even want to be a son, didn't believe that he should have been a son. He just wanted to be a servant. He was unworthy in his own mind. Notice the humbleness that he came to. And it was only then, I taught a whole series on this, until you're willing to be a servant, you'll never be a son. Yeah? And so I had to let this individual know. I'd say, listen, you know what? No, you're not. Because it's kind of like saying, listen, you're a part of a sports team, right? So you're on the Arizona Cardinals. Yeah? And then you leave. You don't show up. You don't show up for any games. 2 years goes by, and all of a sudden you walk back into the Cardinal Stadium, like, hey, I'm on the team. You know what's going to happen? They're going to arrest you and throw you out. You're not on the team. You left. You left the team. Now, the sweet part about knowing that is that if you know that and you want to return to the team, then you know that you need to, and that there is that need, right? If there is otherwise, there might be the feeling that you don't even have the need to because you feel like you already are and still are. Okay? And that leaves this area of deception that Satan can use, all right? So that's why I can't say on the church side, though, that yes, just in general, because people have a wrong concept of that. Guys, the congregation, those who assemble together for that purpose, yes? Even the Lord's Supper itself, guys, it says that they are those who assemble together for the purpose thereof, yes? And so it was really, really neat, guys. Actually, Mary Ann was one of the first ones that just really nailed me to the wall on that. She wanted to be a part of the Lord's Supper, stuff like that, and then she came back and she was like, you know what? No. She was like, next time that we have it, which she passed before that, but I know her heart. But she was just like, no, I need to be a symbol. That's what that's about. It's about a symbol. Yeah? For that purpose. Does that make sense, guys? So, guys, the assembly side of it is really, really big. Who he's talking to are those who are congregated, who are assembled. Otherwise, now, obviously, I already talked about this. What the hope is that a song like this would stick in your heart and that you would continue to sing it on out. But what should that do for any of the hearers? Okay, put it into another context. Debbie, like Jack Johnson. How'd you hear about Jack Johnson? Huh? The radio. So you heard the song. And then when you heard that Jack Johnson was coming, what did you do?
I sang so much, I don't want to hear Jack.
And that first time around, we seen you there, didn't we? Yes, we did. And so what did you do? You went out and got tickets so you yourself could go congregate with others that like Jack Johnson to hear his music. Yes? So what's the hope of this being sung? That would want to come and assemble hearing the same music. The music of the Lord. Does that make sense? Yes?
Yes.
Good?
Joyful noise, that's me.
So guys, verse 4. He says, I sought the Lord and he heard me. I found this to be, awesome.
Right there.
He heard me. How nice is it to know ye ask the Lord and he hears. Nobody thinks that that's nice? I sought the Lord and he heard me. You ever thought that the Lord did not hear you?
Yeah, then
Okay, I'm sorry, there was too many. I couldn't catch anybody's statements because there was too many.
Sadly saying that, so many times we honestly pray like it and act like he never heard us.
Okay,
I
so
actually don't believe he's here.
this goes into a lot of different things, guys. We can spend the whole entire class really talking about that. We just brought up right there in Pastor's word right there. But yeah, guys, I mean, first of all, praying like he didn't hear us is one of the reasons why sometimes it seems like he doesn't hear us. It didn't mean that he did not, but we act like he did not. And then guess what, guys, a lot of times you don't understand this, but you keep him from being able to work certain things because of your unbelief. Okay? According to James himself, he says, you pray, you ask, but you pray amiss. And therefore, you don't ever get to receive. Others don't even pray and ask in the first place, therefore they don't receive it. And they act like God didn't hear them. They never actually asked God. They didn't pray to him. They didn't pray to him as though he's the living God. Hey, well, hello, what does he say? He says that he does hear the prayers of the righteous. So then the question comes down to how real is it that you are right before God the Father?
There you go.
But then that has to come all the way back to Jesus Christ and what he did on that cross for us 2,000 years ago. And did he or did he not get all of our sin? You see, like, the confidence goes all the way back to that moment right there in our first thing that we first heard in our confession of faith. And see, for David, no matter what heck he was going through, he knew that God had saved him, and if God had saved him, then God was for him, and so it didn't matter what else was against him, God was still for him. It didn't matter what giants he had to face, it didn't matter what rivers he had to cross, it didn't matter what forces or holes in the wall, or holes in the desert, or wherever else that he had to go live and sleep in, or whatever else, or whether it was castles in, redwood, or what was it, cedar houses, and whatever else that he got, from one extreme to the other. Yeah? But what he knew was that God was always for him because God said so. And God is true. And so he says, man, I sought the Lord and he heard me and delivered me from all my fears. Now this is another thing I find interesting. So what is David confessing to having? Fears. Guys, again, my conversation today, I really just hate it, guys. I mean, some of us, we just don't get it. You think you're so special. And you ain't. I'm sorry. It sounds horrible when I say it that way. I don't mean it as horrible as it really sounds. I really don't. You ever messed up at something? You ever felt like you were the only one that ever messed up at that? Liar. Why'd you beat yourself up so bad if you know that everybody else messes up at it? Why'd you dwell on it so long if you know that you're a sinner and that everybody else is a sinner too, but God saved you from it? So, I mean, I fought my own follies and all of this and whatever else. And it was funny to me. It's like, you know, sometimes we get these feelings and these emotions and whatever else, and we feel like we're the only one who's ever had it. And somehow that makes us, a lot of times the way that we do that, we run with that is on the negative side, guys. And so we make ourselves less than. So I can't share the gospel with this person because I messed up here, here, and here. Or today my mind just really hasn't been, and I stutter when I speak, and da 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 da, as if you're the only one who ever stuttered that God called to preach. As if you're the only one who's ever, if you're talking to somebody that God called to preach. Do you remember Moses? I mean, what better character to bring up in this? But I mean, the dude was scared of everything. He stuttered. He had a bad temper. I mean, like you just go down the road of like just almost, and yet at the same time, God called him, and guess what he did? He did the mission that God called him to do. And so at the end of the day, he was still used of God, but what he did have to always continue to come back to was trusting in Him, and to come back to trusting God. And that God was going to use him for those things, yes? And so guys, for us, sometimes those fears will fall into those fears. Who always is trying to work up our fears? Why does Satan always try to work on our fears? Because he's scared. But why? No, okay, I mean, maybe there is a side to this, to what you're saying, but there's a side that guys, really, the reality is he knows that you are weak in this. He knows that you are weak. Your weakness is fear. If God is what's real to you at any moment, and He's all that's real to you, then what do you have to fear? But He knows the weakness, though, is that if He can bring fear in, then who will you stop thinking about? Who will you not be looking at? And no matter, guys, how many times have we been fearful but tried to keep our minds on God? Have you been there with me before, too? How hard is that? It's a fight, is it not? I mean, like, it's literally a mental and emotional battle. Like, wait a minute, I'm scared of this. I don't need to be scared of this. Right? Because I have knowledge that the words are this way. I just need some help actually living, believing it that way, right? Meanwhile, Satan is throwing this, then throwing that, and throwing this, and throwing that, and you're trying to constantly chip away and create more fears, more doubt, more wonderment. Yes? And guys, 99.9% of the time, what do we fear? Okay, it's really the unknown. It's what we don't know about whatever it is. Who does know about whatever it is? God does. Which brings you back to then the Lord, and really seeking Him and seeing Him and being about Him. Yes? Yeah? And then it removes a lot of those fears that would otherwise Satan is trying to take to bring divisions. Yes?
No, you basically said it right here. But, Satan's always working to bring that fear. There's torment. James says fear is torment. It brings pain, suffering, and everything negative. But it's fear of God that He wants you to have. That you're afraid of God. And that you'll run from God. That you will not have confidence that God will be for you. And He wants you to always think that God's against you.
Yeah.
And that's what He plays and works on night and day.
When it says that He's a working adversary, guys, I mean, you realize how much practice that He has at this. Guys, in the very, very beginning with Adam and Eve, and He got into dive into that, guys, I mean, what it really sold us under, we really don't comprehend the depth of where ourselves and our own souls were sold. But then us being delivered, really understanding where the lost world still is and all of that. Because, for us, we don't have to fear. And there's times where we don't fear because of our Lord. They don't even have that. Now, one thing about, let me put it this way. Showing fear is a sign of what? Weakness. Right? So in this world, what do you never want to show anybody else? Weakness, yeah, because then they'll try to put power. You know how Satan plays off of your fear, of showing fear, that keeps you afraid and separate from God, running from God, all those different things. Then the nature of our beast and kind of that natural side of it, guys, so I'll get off too far here. But the natural side of that beast and that fight that takes place and all of that, guys, is that fear of self and God's going to get me, God can't forgive me, God can't love me, God can't, or whatever else He's going to get me for all these different things. You know, guys, what were we born into? What was the mindset that we were born into, guys? What I'm just describing right there, that's the mindset that every person was born into. Yeah, God's against us and the separation already between us and God. So the nature, you know, of Satan trying to bring that back to our nature, right? Because now we've been given a new nature. But Satan's always trying to bring that back, guys, and yet the lost world is still yet always caught in that. Now, there's one thing that's really, really neat. Guess who delivers from fear? The Lord. I sought the Lord, and He heard me, and delivered me from all my fears. Then He says, and they looked to Him. Who's they? The congregation. The congregation, the assembly. Yeah. So that they looked at Him and were radiant. What does radiant mean? Shining bright. Yeah? I'm sorry, ladies, but a pregnant woman just has a radiant look about her that is just beautiful. And she doesn't even try to. Like most of them, they're walking around and they're like, you know, in pain, no makeup on or nothing else, and yet there's just a natural look. Yeah? So guys, but you know what? When we hear, I'm sorry, I lost everybody. My bad. I didn't think that one was going to get everybody tripped up, but my pregnant impersonation got everything. My bad. But no, guys, you know, when we hear the gospel, what gets born into our hearts? The reality of God, yes? And then all of a sudden, it's a new life that is taking place literally within us. And it's like the radiant, like of a mother, yes? When somebody else hears the gospel and confesses that it's their reality, what happens amongst the congregation? Yeah? And guys, again, you know, that it all comes back to that when we're hearing God's words, the radiant takes place. You look at those who've been away from God's words, all right? There was a gentleman who was here at the graduation and has not been at church for weeks and months and months and months. And I keep on talking to him, keep on trying to, but anyways, what it is, what it is. You know how he sat the whole entire time? Darkness just all over. And now, was there little darkness on him? I mean, not any more than what it was on anybody else. And yet at the same time, it was just, it's all you could see, it was just darkness all over. Why? Because if you don't see it, if you're not hearing and seeing the words of God, if you're not seeing God, then that radiant can't take place. Yeah? That light can only shine through if you have the light. Yeah? And it's a necessity, guys, for us to be in that congregation. He says, and those that looked to Him were radiant, and their faces were not ashamed. Again, love this statement, the backup to this. And their faces were not ashamed. Radiant. Not ashamed. How could you be, you're looking at God the Father, the holy, the just, the perfect, the Creator, the beginning and the end, the Omega, the Alpha. I mean, you're talking, I mean, He is, how could you not be ashamed? I'm sorry, but have you looked at yourself lately? How could you not be ashamed? How could you not be ashamed? Through Jesus Christ. Thank you, Monique. Somebody said His name. Jesus Christ. The only way that you would not be ashamed, but instead be radiant looking at God, is through Jesus Christ. Yeah? And knowing that how God's looking at you. Through Jesus Christ. Yeah? He says, and this poor man cried out, and the Lord heard him. And I love here, he says the poor man. Now, that word there, and you guys, it's that who is in need. It is he who has been humbled. And who is in need. Guys, if you never feel like you're in need from God, there's a side to it, guys, that once we have him, do we need? Huh? Okay, so there, now you guys caught it. You guys did catch it. Okay, good. All right. Because there's a side to it, guys. Do we have any need once we have him? No. But you know what we always have the need for? Him. Yeah? And Hebrews itself says, be careful lest you drift away, and so forth and so on. Then, no, we don't need, but we need him. And he's all that we ever need. He's just him. Don't need to be right, don't need to be wrong, we just need him. Yeah, we don't need this, we don't need that, we just need him. What we need is we just need him. And you guys, and he says, man, this poor man, he cried out, and the Lord heard him and saved him out of all of his troubles. All of his troubles. How many troubles do you have? How many cares do you have? If you have him, you have the deliverer from all of your troubles. You have the deliverer from all of your cares. He says, the angel of the Lord, I love this one, I use this one with my kids all the time. The angel of the Lord encamps all around those who fear him and delivers them. This one, he didn't even use the second line to back up the first line. He just says it. He's just like, this isn't good enough. It's just the way that it is.
You've already got it in there. They're backing up.
The angel of the Lord encamps.
He's there. So
what does that mean, encamp? Surround. Guys, if an army comes and encamps around your city, you're completely surrounded. You ain't getting out. You ain't getting away. Nothing else is getting in. No resources are getting in, and nothing is getting out. Yes? So you think about that. The angel of the Lord encamps all around those who love, honor, and respect him. What do you have to fear? So I use this one, guys, and it was used on me when I was a little kid. And I was afraid. And so I told my mom and dad that I was afraid. I said, what are you afraid? The angels of the Lord protect us. And so I told my kids, I said, if you can imagine, use your imagination. My kids have to sometimes. They're actually pretty good at it. And I said, just imagine, all around you, there's angels. And they're all just in camp. They're set in, they're dug in, they ain't going nowhere. Job, it says that there was a hedge that Satan could not even reach through. Yeah? The angels of the Lord encamp around those who love, honor, and respect him. So I tell them, guys, it doesn't matter what comes. Nothing can get through. Just always love, honor, respect him. You're good. Nice. Do God love him? Yeah. Do you love him? Yeah. What are you afraid of then? Oh, all right, let's go to bed. Oh, taste and see that the Lord is good. Oh, taste and see that the Lord is good. How are you going to taste that the Lord is good? His words. How are you going to see that the Lord is good? His words. Okay? The difference in the two. But if you're going to taste it, then what does that mean? You have to take it in. But if you're going to see it, what does that mean? You got to live it out. Or bring it out. Speaking it to others, living it out, whatever the promise might be, seeing that it's that way. Yeah? And then that the Lord is good. What does that mean? What is good? But how do you know that God is good? Okay, he says, guys, there's real evidence, though, to our faith. Guys, and our faith is not based off of just spoof move. Our faith is real, and there's evidence there, too, guys. You set aside a tenth of an offering and test the Lord, or whether or not you are blessed or not blessed. How many of us have put him to the test and seen that it is his way? Do you know what I'm saying? So, I mean, it's not just like spoof-moving type. No, I mean, like, you could actually put his words to action and see that they are good, that they are true. Yes? So here, that word good, guys, it's true. It's always in the right direction. It's always correct. It's good. It's not going to leave you harmed, which is the opposite of good. Blessed is the man who trusts in him. So, taste, which means you have to be taken in. See, which means that you have to speaking them, using them, applying them, his words, that the Lord is good. And then he comes in and says, blessed. Blessed is what? Sins blotted out. Remember no more. Blessed is the man who trusts in God, in him. So laying your trust in God, who's always been good, and you've even been able to take it and taste it and know that it was good, and you've really seen it, that it was good, and guess what? So just trust in him, and guess what? You will always be blessed. Yeah, which, I mean, yeah, you're all good. I mean, if your sins are all gone, then it's all good, ain't it? Yeah? It's heaven for sure. Oh, fear the Lord, you his saints. Again, who is he talking to? Again, the congregation. And you guys who are his saints, of whom, by the way, which we never got back to and read, but Hebrews, the next statement that he says after these heroes of faith, he says, of whom this world was not even worthy for you to walk upon. So you know what? Some of you, don't get me wrong, you look in the mirror, there ain't nothing there to see that's worth anything. But what you have tasted, and what you have seen, and what you have lived out, and what you have brought to others, guys, this world was not even worthy to ever have. And what that means is then the love of God has been poured out in your heart, and you then bringing that love in every step that you have taken, every piece of dirt that you step on was not worthy for you to walk on. That's what God himself says. Though fear the Lord, you his saints. There is no want to those who fear him. You will never lack if you fear him. Now, this is a man. Now, I got to end. Unfortunately, guys, we weren't even halfway through. This is a man who at this moment right now, when he's writing this, you realize he has nothing besides either a horse or a donkey and a sword that he stole from a priest. Well, still, but borrowed for forever. No, he went and asked for it. The priest gave it to him. He just lied to get it. Nonetheless, he ain't got nothing. And well, he ain't got nothing. I mean, like he has nothing that's his. He has nothing that's his. And yet, what does he say? He says that the man who fears the Lord will never be in want. Now you could look at David. He's lost his wife. He's lost his house. He's lost. I mean, like if you want to look at this physical life, you would just look at it and you'd say, "Oh my gosh, lost." And yet, what he's singing praises to, what he's seeing with his eyes. You know, stillness from the sermons. I don't think his eyes were down. I think his eyes were a little bit more on the horizon. I don't think his eyes were on the moment, but I think his eyes were on what was ahead. You know, I think his eyes were on God and what God's promises were, not on this world and what the people of this world were promising. Now, if you remember, guys, the psalm right before this, he's talking about the trouble. He's talking about the enemies and how they're hounding him. He's talking about how they're looking to destroy him. And then he says, but you know what? Nevertheless, when I fear, I'm always going to seek my Lord. Yes? And that was the psalm that led into this one right here, of him singing about the deliverance, guys, in the wonderful pieces of God. So, guys, I love you all. I have one last thing to bring to everybody. Actually, no, I can't. I'm sorry. I got to get in verse 10. Because verse 10 is in verse 9 what he's saying. I'm sorry. Verse 10, he says, the young lions lack and suffer hunger, but those who seek the Lord shall not lack any good thing. The reason why we have to bring that in, guys, What is the strongest of all the beasts? What is the most, I mean, if there is a predator that is the best at being what it is the lion. And even it hungers and starves, and it lacks. Yes? So even the strongest of all the beasts, but anyone who just loves the Lord and fears the Lord, you got to worry about that. Sorry, I had to bring that in. All right? The next few weeks, I guess we'll just play it out, whatever else. Guys, I'm going to have a couple weeks here in June where I'm going to be missing. I'm going to be gone. All right? So it'll be a few weeks, actually. And so, pray for me, bless our family. Talk about a blessing, maybe a curse, I don't know. Sorry. No, is the camera still rolling? All right, you guys, as far as the class tonight, go ahead and kind of close. But I just kind of feel you guys in on my own personal thing.